Hello everyone, this is Ms. Long and I have some instruction for you on how to complete the debate flow chart of arguments and evidence. The purpose of this, I want you to know, is not just arbitrary. This is so that you have all of your information, all of your research, all of the things that you need to include in your final written debate on one document. And if you do this particular document well, you will find that writing the debate is actually a piece of cake. I'm going to be a little pickier on this as you turn it in. I don't want to see any partially done assignments. This needs to be done well, or it needs to be done not at all, because really this is the organization that will write your debate in our Unit 3. So let me just kind of give you an idea of what I'm looking for. As you can make a copy of this first, you'll write what your debate resolution is. Reminder, that is a sentence, not a question. That was a sentence like, Obamacare is a complete disaster and should be repealed, or gun control should be mandatory in all 50 states, or marijuana should be legal for all people over the age of 24 throughout the United States. Whatever the statement that you think it is should be here. Please remember to write that in the affirmative. The debate resolution should not contain a negative like the word not, or else it gets really confusing, because then if you are affirmative, you're affirming a negative statement, and if you're negative, you're affirming a negative affirmative statement. So it's kind of tricky. So make sure it is something that is affirmative, does not contain the word not, and is a sentence. Hopefully that's as clear as mud. Then you're going to just remember that the affirmative side agrees with whatever it is you write here, and the negative side disagrees with whatever is written here. So it's not about your personal opinion, it's about terminology for debate. After you complete that, you will need any necessary definitions. If you are trying to describe what euthanasia means and you're only allowing a certain type of euthanasia, that's where you put that. If you're discussing abortion, then you certainly need to define terms, what it means to abort a fetus versus an embryo, terms that people would need to understand so that the two people that are debating this have the same understanding. Because if you just change your definitions, there's no longer any debate. We just have a disagreement on words. So make sure that you've thought that one through. The affirmative position is I'm basically asking you to restate the resolution here, what it is that you're trying to prove. Marijuana should be legal. Video games are helpful to individuals. Violent video games are appropriate for children, whatever it is. That's what you're trying to prove. Then you're going to have 1, 2, or 3 reasons to support that. Now, if you can do 2 reasons in considerable depth, that's probably enough. Sometimes you may come up with 3 reasons. This reason statement should not contain any facts. It should not contain any references. It should be a general statement. So, for example, on the marijuana debate, one of your reasons for the marijuana debate might be that it should be legal because it is not significantly harmful. So then you're going to write that there. That's your general idea. You're trying to prove that it's not significantly harmful. To do that, you're going to need to provide different types of evidence. And I want you to think through which evidence is most effective for the reason that you're trying to prove. So let's just say you're trying to prove that it's not significantly harmful. You would provide testimonial from doctors. That would be a quotation from an expert who would say something about its harm or lack of harm. You would have statistics about the number of people who are addicted to it, or the number of people who maybe have significant addiction problems. You would give anecdotes. These are examples. This is about Joe Smith down the street who uses it and finds that it has not disrupted his work record or anything like that. It would be an analogy. This would be something like marijuana is to people what Kool-Aid is to children. And I'm just making some of this up, but it would be a comparison, a metaphor. And any other types of evidence could go here. What you're then going to then say is, what's the impact or value of that evidence? So if you've got a doctor's testimonial, then you would say, this is really showing that marijuana truly is not harmful because a doctor knows that all kinds of substances go in our body and is able to really put those in order by virtue of his expertise. The impact for a statistic would be, say, if it was 95% can use marijuana without any significant problems, you can say that the general population deserves the right to use marijuana because most people can handle it. It's kind of an interpretation. Anything that is appropriate for most people should be legal. And that's kind of the democratic way to go with the majority rules. and so forth with anecdote or analogy. Then you come over to this column and you say, gee, what would the negative side say? If I were arguing against the legalization of marijuana, if I were arguing that in fact marijuana was significantly harmful, that were my negative side, what would I say about this idea that it's not significantly harmful? What would I say about this doctor's testimony? What would I say about the statistics, this anecdote, or this analogy? And then you come back to, what does the affirmative side say in regard to the negative? Well, yeah, but your statistics are bad. Yeah, but this doctor is representative of the mainstream. Yeah, but there's also this. So when you write your debate, you're basically going to have this at the beginning of your paragraph, this will be in the middle of your paragraph, and this is how you wrap it up. So you're ending on your strongest point. Then you do the same thing for the second reason that your resolution is true. Again, if my resolution is marijuana should be legal, then a second reason for that might be something like it's a natural substance. Now, granted, this is the natural fallacy, but that might be your reason for this. And you give different evidence here, and your why does this matter, your so what the negative side says, and your affirmative response. Same thing for a third reason. And then, remember, you have to argue both sides. Then you move on to a negative side here. What is the negative side trying to prove? If your affirmative side is saying marijuana should be legal, your negative side is saying it should not be legal. And the first reason that the negative side might say something about its cancer-causing properties or something like that. And then again, provide evidence that's testimonial, statistic, anecdote, and analogy. Then go through what the negative side would say as to the so what of that information. Then what the affirmative side, yeah, marijuana's good, so we're going to go back and argue that. Here's what the affirmative side says and how the negative side would respond to that. Now, you don't have to agree with one side or the other, you just have to be able to see those points. You have to be able to argue that opinion convincingly. Ideally, when you get done with this, if I can't tell what your actual true beliefs are, you've done a good job. So that's kind of the basic idea here. You fill out the chart, you get all of your evidence, you list it specifically, what that evidence is, and then you submit that, and then next week you'll just take this document and turn it into an actual debate, written debate. So it should be a piece of cake once you have this organized. Please keep in mind as you're evaluating the different types of evidence that for some contentions, pathos, your emotional appeals, just might be more effective. Or for some appeals, you really do need the credibility of testimonial. Or for some types of contentions, good old logos, good old logic is going to come into play. So think through what is going to be most convincing to your audience. What type of evidence should you use to support each point? And that's the basic idea. This is due this week, which will run into actually Thanksgiving. But do this well, and December will be a much easier month. Seeing you with any questions. Thanks.